Welcome. Good to see you
Hello.
guys.
Oh, hey.
Hello.
If you hold on 1 second. Okay. Um. Oh
Yeah.
God. 1 sec.
In the meantime, I will say hello to all
I'm
of the
back.
folks who
Sorry.
are here in the chat. We were just saying hello to everyone who's already saying hi to us. Yeah, it is great. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling that this podcast kind of forces us to feel each other in this unique way, and it's great to see TGT regulars as well as sometimes people who are trying out this podcast, checking
Oh,
us out.
hey to
Okay.
both.
Okay.
So
I
hello
see
to
Boo
all.
here. Boo.
Yeah,
We based this show.
yeah.
Today's Boo's 40th
Tell
birthday.
him.
Boo, you're gonna. We based this show on the
On
concept
your
for the show based
comments.
on your comments from last
Yeah,
week. So
Right.
happy birthday. So guys, welcome everybody to the Great Transition. If you're traveling 1,000 miles to get to Jerusalem and you've only gone 999 miles, you're still not there yet. But it doesn't
does it
mean
have to
that
be
you.
Jerusalem?
No, it doesn't matter where you're going. It's just a
Okay.
concept. The point is, we're in the middle of a huge transformational process. We talked about it a lot in the last month or so that we're in this pre-robot era. What's happening is you go 999 miles on a 1,000 mile journey. If you didn't make that 1,000th mile, you're not there yet. But it doesn't mean, Rabash has that thing about if you need to eat like a certain amount of bread to feel satiated, until you eat the last bite, you're not satiated. The last bite itself, if it was just that much, that would not satiate you. But in the right place in the journey, that last bite kind of puts you over the edge. And we need to understand where we are, everybody. You might not feel that you arrived in quote unquote Jerusalem yet. We're still in this big transformation process, but we're not at the beginning anymore. We're already in motion. We are three students of the wisdom of Kabbalah, studying for a few decades with our teacher, the incredible Rav Michael Lightman, who just opened up um, the secrets of the universe to lowly nobodies like us, to anybody who's just asking those questions about what is the meaning of life. Um, and here we are from week to week, discussing and looking at what's going on in the world and how to understand our place and our role. So, welcome. When you enter we have a very provocative title today. You can't love if you don't hate. So we'll discover what that's all about. When you enter the wisdom of Kabbalah, and you start learning the method of Bala Sulam, millions, all those feelings, all those variables, all those different confusions of life slowly start to become ordered. It's one of the huge benefits. They
Hmm.
talk about people going crazy when they study the wisdom of Kabbalah. That's not when you study the wisdom of Bala Sulam. There's a lot of conditions for the study. There's a method for the study, and actually, your life becomes much more orderly. And of course, you have all kinds
Hmm.
of fluctuations, but in a sense, it becomes calm because you start to understand that things aren't happening just random and chaotically. There's a whole structure and progression to what's going on. So one of the first things we learn about is the structure of reality, of all of reality, this primordial structure called Yud He Vav He. That's the root of all reality, the root of all. I just thought I'd throw that in there in the first 5 minutes. The root of all perception. Um, that sounds like it. The smallest
No,
building block
here's the
in
thing. Let me reveal something to our audience before you go on. Just
okay.
Chris and I are not sure how to open this show, this conversation. So basically, so now when Seth had to go for a second there to deal with something, it was nice to look at the chat and get a feel, but we don't really know how to open this show. So now Seth acts like he does. But sometimes he's also surprised. So when you say when you're talking about Havaya or Yud Hey Vav Hey, I'm like, okay, where's this gonna go?
And we don't we we're and sometimes we're supposed to ask and sometimes we're not. I don't even know right now. Are we supposed to ask about that? That's interesting. Yud. I've heard of Havaya. I've heard of Yud Hey Vav Hey, but I don't really understand what that has to
You're
do
playing the
with.
character of the guy who doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Sure, of course.
Okay.
That's usually my character, anyways.
All right. Well,
Sounds
once
cool.
Okay,
the
go ahead.
threshold of
Yeah.
interest gets, once your saya of interest cup overflows with interest, so then let me hear about it.
All right.
The smallest building block in spirituality is 10. It's called
Mm.
10 sfirot. So any spiritual object you point at, if you zoom in, you find Keter, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. In any object, anything in reality, you point at that one thing, and inside is 10. Also, inside that 10 is also 10. And also inside that 10, inside the 10 is also 10. So it also has this fractal quality to it as well. This structure, this Yud-Hey structure, which has this infinite 10 structure within inside of it, also comprises the spiritual worlds. Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. As the light travels down from Ein Sof and gets more and more and more dimmed until it gets down to our world, down to our perception in this reality, into this material world, we also find that same structure. So we have the human degree, and below the human degree, we have the animal degree, and below the animal degree, we have the vegetative degree, and below the vegetative degree, we have the inanimate degree, molecules, water, rocks, etc.
Okay, now I can hear you a little bit.
Okay, so in the same way in spirituality, inside of 10, inside 10, inside 10, you also have the same thing in our life. So now let's take the human degree, right? We had inanimate, vegetative, animal level, animal kingdom, and then the human. So inside the human, if we look inside the human at the desires of the human, we also have those same four degrees, which are based on that same Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The first level is man's, you could also probably see some kind of correlation to Maslow here. So man's necessary desires: need to eat, need to rest,
Yeah.
need to drink, right? The
Get
next
that shelter.
degree, yeah, shelter, exactly. The next degree is craving luxury for that. So I'm not just eating, bread and salt, but I want a reduction sauce with, some nice reverse seared steak and, all those nice things. I want Chris's eyes light up. I want, a softer pillow. I want a better roof, etc. So now it's
I want
all of
everything to
my,
be made of gold. Just
I want my
gold.
necessities, but I want my necessities, luxuriously. The third level, the level of the third degree, then is what I absorb from those around me. So, for example, I see honor, power. Like it's not enough that I just have what I need and even have good of what I need, but I want. If I see that he wants, I want respect. I want all this. Um, for
Like
example,
non-material.
if I have
Basically,
Mercedes and my neighbor has,
your envy and honor and lust and things that are that come to you or are amplified through the environment begin to like brew in you, right? That's
yeah,
the
right.
level
Like it's
you're
more.
talking
I
about.
feel great if people see that I have the good things.
Mm,
It's not enough that I
nice.
just have it, but that people recognize that I have
The
it.
Kanye West uh, paradigm.
Leave it at
What's the
that.
Kanye West
Leave it
paradigm?
at that.
Okay,
Leave
okay,
it at that.
okay.
Uh,
Um,
I'll just
and the
say
fourth,
though, from another perspective, that
yeah,
it's really cool that you have a whole science, behavioral economics. Professor Dan Ariely and others interesting people engage in that, and essentially, it's all about that, or a lot of it is about that. It's about how they ask people in studies questions like, "Would you prefer to have less money in your, like a smaller salary, but that your colleagues will earn less than you, or would you want to have a little more, but your colleagues will have a lot more than you?" and what do you think people choose, right? So I mean, it's interesting, yeah. So
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
powerful.
so we're talking about the wisdom of Kabbalah, but in each of these things we're talking about, there are in the material sciences
Yeah.
great experiments that prove all of these things wonderfully. So, and the fourth degree is knowledge, meaning like, who am I? What am I doing here? To have power, knowledge, basically. That's
Hmm.
the more
Yeah,
sublime
if I
human
know the
desire.
laws of nature, I can use them best to my advantage, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
So, a student of Bala Sulam, or a student of Bala Sulam's method, has advantage of life because then he starts to understand himself, understand what are these forces in me. Now, even just what we talked about now,
Seth,
these four
maybe a
degrees of
tad
forces.
closer to the mic, or
Okay,
tad more gain.
these four degrees
Yeah.
of desires. You know, usually it's just we go through life and we feel something, but now, okay, where are these things, and what are these things? So, what are the forces in me? What are the forces in nature around me? And what can I do with these things? So, Boo, here comes our friend Boo.
Hmm.
And by the way, Boo, are you new to us? Because I don't remember seeing you around until recently. So let
Recently,
us know in
yeah.
the chat here.
Could be a
We're
username
paying
change too.
attention. Yeah.
That's also interesting. Why didn't think a lot of the um, esteemed Greek. No, I don't know a lot, but I know there's a couple examples of some Greek philosophers that dabbled in Kabbalah as well.
Oh, a
Probably
ton.
just for a
Especially
ton.
the foundational philosophers, like
Plato.
yeah. But I mean, the Johannes Reuchlin says that Pythagoras, who was his teacher, he writes that we basically took the Kabbalistic wisdom and translated it to philosophy. That's basically
Right.
what he writes in his book. And there's a bunch of other philosophers that knew Kabbalah and that knew that there was an origin of a point of philosophy that came from Kabbalah. Anyway, that's a whole. Why did we get there? Go ahead, keep going.
Knowledge.
Chris, why are we talking about
Desire
knowledge?
for
Okay.
knowledge. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So last
All
week,
right.
Boo, who I don't know if Boo is new here. Oh, Boo, I only started commenting the past couple weeks. I've been reading Michael Eitman, that's our teacher, and watching him and Tony Kosnek's online material for 20 years. Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
Hello, Boo.
All
wow.
right.
And so you have some foundation here, obviously, clearly. So Boo pointed out last week two experiments. One by Conrad Lawrence, the Nobel Prize winner in discoveries in animal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So Boo pointed out in one of the studies that herding animals don't bond or hate; they aggregate. Uh, they they just they're
Mm-hmm.
herded, but they don't bond or hate. And only creatures that are
Mm-hmm.
capable of hate and aggression were capable of bonds of love. And he
Mm.
mentioned a
That's a
second
nice. That's a nice
experiment.
That's interesting.
observation. Yeah.
Yeah. Conrad actually later joined the Nazi party and, did all kinds of experiments on the animals. But
That's
Harry
also
Harlow,
interesting.
He's got to know.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Harlow, you guys know, you may not know the name Harry Harlow, but I know we've discussed his experiments before. He was the guy
Oh, I think
who,
with the monkeys, no, and the mother
yes. So
monkey something. Yeah, famous. Yeah, famous
you
experiments. I
want to tell
remember.
us about the experiment?
I may, if you remember it better, go ahead. Cause
He made
yeah,
a wire monkey mother and a
right.
cloth monkey mother. You
Yeah.
remember?
No, go. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So he did experiments about bonding and attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of thing where if you so when the monkeys were born, they would give them like a wire monkey mother,
Mm-hmm.
and the monkey would bond with the wire monkey mother. And
Right.
they made it then like a soft cloth monkey mother, and the monkey would bond. The monkey would bond with whoever the mother it was given, right? So it turns out, though, that when you gave a monkey a soft mother, and then you put the bottle with the wire mother, the monkey would stay with the cloth mother as much as possible until it needed food, and then it would go to the wire monkey, get the food, and then come back to the cloth monkey.
Wow,
So
what a
this
torturous experiment, though,
oh, he
huh?
did
Wow.
horrible things. He put
Wow.
monkeys in like confinement for like a month at a time, and then just watch the behavior afterwards. Terrible stuff. But what he showed in some of these experiments is that in other experiments is that if you train out of a monkey to out of animals to never be aggressive,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
then those animals are never able to make friends or have sex.
That's so,
So,
that is so
Hmm.
profound.
so
Yeah, on so many
okay,
levels. Like, yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go
Hmm.
back to what we discussed before earlier about the levels of desire, okay? You had the necessary desires,
Yeah.
a little more lustful version of those, um, envy and power, and then knowledge. Right? These all these desires are inside of us. So what these guys did basically in their experiments is they trained out of the animals their animal nature and regressed them back to their vegetative nature. Like they're still
Hmm.
eating, they're still pooping, they're still doing animal things, but all of the additional things that an animal has
Mm-hmm.
that a plant doesn't have, he trained it out of them. Made them not have this aggression
Mm-hmm.
inside them. Made
Additional,
them,
like, more desire.
yeah, an animal has more desire. So we talked about it, the inanimate
Mm-hmm.
level, which is water,
You know,
rocks.
it's fascinating the how much taming and training can do in all animals, and I would even say more so in humans. I mean, we've showed here, years ago, like feral children, that situation of how you can take
Yeah.
a human and you can put a human in an environment of, say, dogs and let them grow up with dogs and they become dog-like. And it's both, grotesque and fascinating to watch at the same time. I mean, if you don't, if you for our listeners, if you're not familiar, look up feral children. That's pretty shocking if you haven't
It's
seen
also
Oh,
that.
you
interesting. It's also interesting. The more developed some animal is or some species, the more developed the easier it is, or the more able you are to train them. Am I just making that connection right now, or is already known?
Say it
Like
again.
dolphins.
The more
I
what?
don't know. The more developed an animal is, like we'd say this animal is very
Oh,
developed,
yeah,
is
yeah,
very
yeah.
smart, then it's actually more capable of being trained.
Yes, and yeah, there's actually a chain. You can show how basically the less evolved you are on the tree of biological life, the more instincts, the more you are governed by instincts.
Mm,
And the
that's
more
what it is.
evolved you are, and the human is at the peak of that evolution, the more you rely on learning. And that's very interesting. You take a bull, and a 1 day old bull can already walk and do stuff. And they take a baby, you put it alone for a couple months. If there's no one to take care of it and teach it what to do, it doesn't know anything and it'll die. And yet the one that needs learning and has much less from birth becomes the ruler of the earth. So it teaches us something about where evolution is
Hmm.
going, or what it wants, or where it leads. You know,
A lot of
um,
clues.
yeah.
So these guys took creatures that were on the animal degree and they trained out of it aggression.
Hmm.
So we think of aggression as something bad.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They trained out of it aggression, and then it never procreates. It never has a desire for sex anymore. So it can't, the species can't continue if you trained aggression
And
out
can't
of.
even make friends. That's also like really interesting.
Hmm. It
Yeah.
inhibits it in a
Yeah.
very
And if
unpredictable way, kind of.
there's a lot of research that shows that, I mean, it's a known thing that many kinds of animals, when they're young, they wrestle with each other, and that builds their social skills. It's also true for humans, like with your kids. If you have little kids, and like wrestling with them helps them build social skills, because you basically feel more where are you and where is the other, and what pains the other, and what's what's nice to them, where with like that limit, that blurry line between play and
Aggression.
aggression, yeah, becomes like more vivid and visceral through wrestling. Through wrestling with someone. I always have this. We probably all have this friend in childhood. Where you
He's a
like
little too rough.
where it's a little too rough.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
You always took it a little too
Yeah,
far.
it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
come on, man, everyone's having
Yeah,
fun, and now you're hurting people.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. But what is it? It's like a lack of sensitivity. It's like a lack of like they haven't yet developed the sufficient sensitivity and like tactfulness. Think about tactfulness in social interactions. What is it? How do you teach that? It's not
Right.
really something you can teach orally. You have to like you have to
Feel
like
it. You gotta feel it out.
You got to feel it, being more or less tactful. It's like it's something that comes from wrestling, allegorically speaking, wrestling through social interactions. That builds your tactfulness, you know? So anyway, keep going, Seth. I think we threw you to a whole different
No, this is great
tangent
stuff.
here.
This is great
Okay.
stuff. So
Okay,
let's
good.
return for a second to what is, let's return to Bala Sulam. Let's return to the Ari. Let's return
Yeah.
to those original sources, the tree of life. What is the purpose of creation? The purpose of creation is to fill creation with all that is possible, with everything, all that the creator has, all that Ein Sof, that endlessness, to fill the creature with endlessness. Now, this is something that's really, really interesting. The earlier generations, the Moses generations, the Abraham generations, the Adam generations, so they were, we could say, closer to that godliness, and they were in touch with that godliness. But here we also come across a very fascinating, you guys probably heard this, but that it took Bala Sulam quite some time to crack the inverse relation of light and vessels. Like it wasn't like obvious. Like the words were there, and I'm sure he understood it, but like to really crack what's going on there
And be
was
able
not
to
clear. And into
express it
this,
like that. No one expressed it like
yeah.
that before him. Yeah.
So let's try in the
Yeah.
next 15 minutes and see if we can do it. So what we're talking about is this. When you in the light, in that endless light, there's no, it's called Ein Sof. There's no borders. There's no nothing. There's no eye to see. You can't see anything. You can't touch anything. You can't taste anything. There's nothing there. So when we talk about the inanimate, the vegetative, the animate, and the speaking, or all these degrees, we talked about the Yud, Hey, and the Vav, and the Hey. The closer you are, the more similar you are, it means the less opposite you are from the light. However, let's look at a person who just
wait.
desires.
Let's add. Let's just fill in the blanks here, because you've talked about
Okay.
these 4 levels of desire. So basically, we're saying the lower level of desire you have, the less desire you have, the closer you are to the light. On the
Right.
one hand,
Go
that's
very
what you're
slow and
saying.
step by step here so we
That's
can
what
build
you're.
this.
I'm not even going further. I'm just
Okay.
unpacking what you said in less words. I'm just giving it more detail. So basically, what you were just saying is you were describing these 4 levels of evolution of desires, and now you said the
The less hate you have, the more the
the
less
less
You didn't say
desire
desire
you
hate,
you
have.
but
have.
okay.
We didn't say
Hate
Throwing
hate
a
tries
hit
to
clue
yet.
in.
But yeah, okay. But the less you want, the closer you are to the light. And the
Right.
more your desire is evolved and wants more quantitatively and qualitatively, the farther you are from the light. Again, in
The more
spiritual,
material you are. I want food. I
right?
want
Yeah,
sex. I want this material stuff versus, a bird takes a seed, and if the energy, if the magnetism or the wind
nice.
changes, the
Yeah,
bird moves with the whole system.
right.
The water moves with the system, the wind moves with the system, the bird moves with
Nice.
the
Yeah,
system.
yeah. Give
Right? He's very
let's
close
make
to the
more
system.
visuals, more visuals. I think that helps kind of no, it helps set it. And also, I mean, if you think about it in terms of time also. I mean, the inanimate level of the universe develops for billions of years, billions and billions of years, and we see much less agency there. We see much less individuality there. We see much less something that resembles a choice there. There's just forces of nature that are gradually just playing out a program that we can, with our physics, let's say, then break down into simple equations or more complicated equations that describe essentially the movements of nature, let's say, the development and movements and rhythm of nature. And we're saying that kind of level of development is something we could characterize as closer to the origin of reality, closer to what we
Closer
call
to the will of
light
God, right.
right, that
Right.
nature's
Everything is
governing
participating, is
force.
harmonious,
Right, right. Okay, good.
is working with each other. So
Yeah,
this is where we find those first early Kabbalists, the Moseses, the Adams. They were close to nature, close to the system. They felt it
nice.
inside, and they could be with. Now, here's the problem we run into.
And they lived in a time, just two more sentences on this.
Sure, sure.
And they lived in a time where also the rest of human society around them was also lower in their levels of evolution and evolution of desires. Meaning all of humanity was also closer to nature, we can say. If you look at humanity, about, let's say, 6,000 years ago, if we're talking about the initial Kabbalists, yeah. So about 6,000 years ago, it was a completely different mankind, different humanity. If humanity already was after the agricultural revolution, and we already began to be less dependent on the forces of nature, and yet we came from such a reality where people were living closer in communities, more dependent on each other, much less individualistic. If you go even
That's
farther,
more like the birds that flow with the.
exactly, yeah. I mean, if you think about a pack of wolves, a school of fish, a flock of birds. They feel each other instinctively, and we've shown that a bunch of times on the show, like the murmuration or a school of fish, where you have 100,000 or million even little fish, swirling together amazingly, and you ask yourself, how is that even possible? And all of it happens. It's as if they're all governed by a single mind. And you see that throughout nature, swarm intelligence. There's many such phenomena that you see in the animal kingdom still. Now we're saying that humans essentially came from started developing closer to that kind of state. They felt each other more or less like kin in those times. They were much less individualistic, egoistic, wanted much less. Their lives were simpler and shorter,
They weren't
by the way.
not too far away from the
And
animal degree, is what you're
exactly.
saying.
So, and somewhere 6,000 years ago, the first Kabbalists begin to develop, and Seth says they're closer to that level of nature. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but the problem
Okay.
is, and Seth is probably going to say, is that, but you said earlier that the goal was to just receive like all this something.
This is the problem. This is the
All right.
problem. So also at that time, 6,000 years ago, coincidentally, as this new as these humans start to have this perception, conscious perception, you also now start to have agriculture, and you start to have the wheel is invented.
Hmm.
By the way, who knows with the pyramids and the findings on the pyramids? We'll have to talk about that another time. And what about previous civilizations before 6,000
All
years?
right.
But we're gonna hold that
All
for other
right.
times. All right.
Can't
Sorry, I
wait.
couldn't help myself. So as civilization, it now because of agriculture, I don't need to only go get food in the summertime or
Hmm.
only eat when things are blooming. I can now plant things that will harvest in the future. And
Right.
now I learn how to make all different kind of vessels to store stuff, and we can save things for later. And so the desire in humanity starts to grow. Now we have the wheel. Now we can go to farther places. We can move more things easily to other places. And now the desires in humans grow. It's not enough that I just have what I need for today. I also want to save for tomorrow.
Hmm.
And you can imagine how this starts to grow and grow and grow, and how the desires in people start to grow.
It's a this is going to come into play later, but it's interesting to note that most of the time, well, all the time really, is that we're taking these revealed laws of nature. Let's say like we didn't know how a sail would work on the water if you attach some kind of floating device to it and it would push you across the water and then you could float across, right? You know, a sailboat. That's technology. But really all you're doing is you're using something that already exists. I mean, you could say this about anything, right? Some plane that flies in the sky.
Hmm.
You're using something that already exists, some laws of natures
Oh, I
that
see
you've
where you're going with
observed
this. Okay.
and you have adapted, yeah, and you've made some changes
Nice,
to your
nice, nice.
approach to
Yeah.
how
So,
you how they how you work with them.
okay,
Right.
that's a good point. Let's just give it
Yeah.
a one
Yeah.
liner. So basically, human beings are in their evolution. They learn the fixed, unchanging laws of nature, and how they can by using them a certain way, even in the opposite way. Like you can you know gravity, and if you know it well enough and other forces of physics, you can actually fly a plane that goes contrary to gravity, and you can lift that whole building up in the sky. So the laws of nature don't change, but the way we use them or position ourselves towards them, that determines the outcome, which could be
Right.
completely opposite than how the law by itself
This
works.
is going to be very
Yeah.
important into understanding the title of the show and where we're going.
It reminds me of the whole aggression thing that you said earlier. Like that's a law of
Yeah.
nature. Aggression is in there, you know. So and
Yeah.
we're trying to like, yeah,
Okay, so what is that law? That aggression that we see that starts to develop in animals and then ends up crowned in the human, where the human says, I want to conquer the entire world. I want everything. I want all the money. I want all the places. I want all the respect. I want everything. This is this is the this is the will of the creator, we can say, that he, in order to give all of his light, in order to give all of his fulfillment. Okay, so Lou is saying, where does the hate come into this? Lou is
All
asking now.
right. People already
takes a
want to
Okay,
feel
second.
some hate.
and okay,
Yeah, right.
Lou.
He's getting mad.
um, so um, so in order to for all of that abundance to be felt, so it's not enough that I have $1 million cash, right? And I give it to my cat. How much enjoyment will the cat get out of it? So it's not just that the abundance exists. It's not, that's really not the problem, because when we're talking about the spiritual light, there's no limit to it. So the problem
Where
is
I
not,
want to say, right there, the spiritual light. Because you said it's abstract. It's forcing us to create some clothing, right? Some form that it can't take. Like the $1 million, like you said, for a cat is nothing, right? But if you take this value of $1 million and you're able to clothe it in something else for the cat, right? $1 million in paper money is nothing, but let's just say that the cat has a big desire for something, right? You need to be able to to form
You give him
that.
some fish, and you give him a nice cat house, and you give it a nice cat mate, and you give it catnip, and you give it all the things,
Right.
right? Something that it can, $1 million worth of cat stuff that he can enjoy himself with. So the problem is not from the abundance. In fact, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, it says that the abundance is always shining in all of its completeness. It always was, it always is, and it always will be. So the only issue comes in that the creation will want it
Right.
because, and you say, of course I want it. Well, do you
Hmm.
really? Because as soon as you get Netflix and a pizza and internet, like you're kind of done, right?
Let's do a simple experiment. When we're talking about like just even a thought experiment, I think our listeners will definitely get it. But think about how interesting that is. The If you ask people, don't you want to know what is the meaning of life, the purpose of life, the purpose of your existence, why you're here? Is there a bigger, greater, grander reality beyond what we perceive, which may be just a limited fragment of all that exists? They may be with you for a second, but as soon as the next video comes up, you know, if it's sexy enough or, I don't know, promises you or awakens your desire for food, or it's about a celebrity that you're interested in, for most people, they don't have enough of a desire to explore what's the unknown, that it will be enough for them to put aside, to prefer exploring the unknown versus just getting a quick, gratification from
And they're
something
not at
that is
fault. They're
known.
not to blame
I'm
there
not
for that.
saying there
Yeah.
is, but I'm saying just this is a very uh, I'm just giving this as an example to what Seth is saying, that we think of, yeah, of course, the light, spiritual light. Yeah, we all want it. Why don't we want it? No.
Jimmy.
And and basically we do not have the qualified vessel, the desire that is qualified to actually get in touch with that light.
If we were Scientologists and had that special tool that could scan your soul, we would be able to scan our souls and see how much. I don't know too much about their tools, but if we just forget it, we don't forget their tools. If we just do a simple scan of ourself, not when we're in pain or something is being held over some threat is being held over us, but if we were to examine how many hours a day
Mm.
we want that eternal, we want that sublime connection with the creator. How many minutes a day, how many seconds did we actually
Seconds. Let's start
hold
with
on to that?
seconds. Yeah.
It's if you're honest and you examine yourself, you see that of course that's what I want. Of course I want eternal fulfillment more than my paycheck this week, but I spend most of my time on my paycheck this week, and I spent a couple seconds, if I was lucky, on thinking about eternal fulfillment. So here we should start to understand and see what the wisdom of Kabbalah gives us, that when we run into these difficult, now all the advice that we're going to give here, this is not an advice show, so take it, hear it, work with it a little bit, but don't take something you say here and just go try it on. Just go run and live with it. There's a method. You have to be around people who are doing it with you. You need to have some guidance as you're implementing these things. But in
It's
order
also
to go,
sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, just what you said earlier. Like, how often does a person think? It's kind of similar. How often are you dreaming and you're thinking, "Am I in a dream? You know, is it important enough for me to like wake up right now? Because we all you have the analogy of, you know, being in a cage, and, you know, okay, you're in a cage and don't you want to get out of the cage, and you obviously see what's outside of the cage and you say, yeah, for sure, I definitely want to get out to go over there. But you're asking questions like, don't you want spiritual life, spiritual fulfillment, you know, and stuff like this endlessness? Sounds good, but you can't. There's no such thing as looking outside of this cage that we're kind of in
Hmm.
and being able to see something beyond it to want
Right.
that thing.
That's why I mentioned that it's a desire, it's a problem because we're looking towards the unknown, and but this is really, you know, when you can actually build a desire that you're consciously part of it, that you're consciously part of developing it. If you just think about it, most human beings don't think about it. They just, oh, I have a desire for something, I'm going to look for a fulfillment, right? But if you get a desire instinctively for something and you see the fulfillment in front of you, the act of going towards the fulfillment to get it, okay, so I have a desire to eat something and I see a burger or whatever, a fruit, okay? and, and now all that we call a human is what? Is just choosing, to go to the fruit. But that's just forces of nature. There's a minus force within you and there's a plus in front of you, let's say, and the minus attracts to the plus. So where's the human there? If there's a question mark, and you have to search and see where you get and on the way develop your own desire, now you're talking about some conscious participation of the creature. And that only happens with spiritual fulfillment, because spiritual fulfillment, unlike material fulfillment, is hidden from our five senses. And we don't have an immediate kli, vessel, or put it simply, a desire for it. We have just an inkling, just some sort of a little bit of a guess, of a feeling that there's something there. We don't even know where there is, and and so,
But
but
we have a
that's
starting.
where there's a human that can evolve. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a good starting place. And here is where the title comes from. And here's the good starting
Okay.
place. And this is why our generation is different from the Moses generations and the Adam
Right, right,
generations and
right.
the
Yeah.
great one generations. What do we have?
Hmm.
We have these feelings. We have this hatred. We have this separation. We have all these feelings that I want it, right? Like as soon as we meet somebody, we like see somebody, it's like, what can I get out of this person? Like, is this person going to be good for me? Or how do I make sure I stay away from this person so that I can be safe? You know, like we see a car, we're like, not as good as my car. Or we see a car, we're like, I wish I had that car. Like everything we're doing all day long is judging from our perception. And we've evolved. So we started with these experiments by Lorenz and
Harry
Harlow
Harlow. Yeah.
with with the scientists who were able to take an animal and remove its animal quality and lower it down to the vegetative degree.
Kind of. Yeah.
We're talking about now taking let's call us an animal
Hmm.
and raise us, or even let's just for the sake of, we'll give everyone the benefit of the doubt and call us a human, raise us to the spiritual degree. That's our experiment here. Our
Hmm.
experiment is not to lower down the degree. Our experiment is to raise the degree. And how are we going to do that? The tool we have, because we can't grasp a spiritual light, because there's no handles on it, because we can't smell it, and because it has no taste. So what can we do? And therefore, we named the episode, You Can't Love If You Don't Hate. And what does that mean? And how can we explain that? That in order to, if you're just a vegetable, if you're just a vegetable, what does nature need to give you? A little bit of sun during those 3 months and some nutrients in the ground. That's it. If you were just a human who was alive 6,000 years ago, what does nature need to give you? A safe place to sleep where you're not going to get eaten, and some food, and someone to procreate with, and something to do during the day for the 40 years until you die. That's it. But today, if I can't find my phone for 5 minutes, it's like a panic attack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, by the way,
Today,
there's
it's
research on that. It's called nomophobia, no mobile phobia. There's research about how people are developing real anxieties from even just the thought of losing their phone or not having their phone next to them. And who would have thought that just 35 years, forget 35 years, 35 years is the whole internet coming into play. 2007 was the first phone. And today, like, less than 20 years later, we have addiction to screens and a nomophobia research field, that we didn't even think of. No one would even think that this would be a problem, that this would be an issue, 20 years ago. This is insane. And we're like, of course, you tell people
this is
you
the
might lose your
this is the
phone, you get
level of
anxious.
that's the level of our desire now.
Right.
The, compared to the
Yeah.
previous generations. Now this means and because the phone just what does the phone represent? The phone represents fill my desires. Fill me with something, anything, just fill me. Fill.
Oh,
That's why
nice.
everybody, do you notice how everyone recently is like time is going so fast. Today's March 20th. It's like what? We're like almost 3 months through 2025. Like I thought it was like 2022. Like everything's do you notice that?
You know,
I
Hurricane
totally
Katrina
feel
was
it.
almost
I
20
don't know
years
if
ago.
everyone feels it like us, but for us,
I don't
there's
know. I was
no
talking
doubt.
to
There's no doubt that
everyone.
time
It seems
goes
like everyone
faster.
I'm talking to in like all aspects of my
Yeah,
life are just saying time is going so fast now. And
yeah.
the reason is if you put your phone down, time slows down a
Uh-huh.
lot.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Not as many
Yeah,
changes.
basically the amount of change that you experience in a given amount of time has increased dramatically. So in the couple hundred years ago, you would grow up next to your father, learn how to farm or something like that, and every day would be kind of similar, and you wouldn't do that much, and there weren't that many changes. Today, it's like you open this thing and it's like, oh my god, this happened, boom boom, oh this or that, oh I'm bored now, next video, next video, next video. There's like the amount of the estimation about the amount of data that we consume every day is something like 74 gigs, which is like 16 movies. And that's comparable to the amount of information that a person from the 15th century would consume in like a whole lifetime.
Right.
So the
Right.
the amount of information you consume today in a day is roughly equivalent to what a person 500 years ago would experience in a lifetime. What does that mean about the sense of time, right? The experience
and where
So
we are and how we
time
developed it.
time
and where we are. Yeah.
And also, Seth, it's not just, where's my phone and I'm freaking out. It's, depression being like kind of like close to the number one disease as they label it right now in the world. I mean, just look at how many people are, maybe they're not coming out right and saying, what's the purpose of my life? But it's being expressed in ways that are kind of
Yeah.
obvious, if you look at it that way. So not only am I needing to fill everything, I'm also at the same time, especially now and just in the past 10 years or so, I'm also seeing that none of that is working. None of this, none of the fill me is working, which means we're kind of primed for something else.
Okay,
we
we
get to
we,
this-
we have to pay off the title, and we're preventing Seth from doing that. So
No, this is
take it
all
a step.
great stuff. This is all building the story. So we got to this point where the human now needs endless fulfillment. Like the cat who didn't need $1 million, and like the caveman who didn't need more than a shelter and something to eat. Today, if I don't have in my hand something that can endlessly fill me and entertain me every waking hour, I'm, I feel empty. I feel completely empty. So we are now with this very, very coarse desire. We are more capable of receiving, we are more primed to receive the upper light. So on the one hand, we are more coarse, our vessel is more coarse. And on the other hand, if it's used correctly, which is called purified in the wisdom of Kabbalah, the vessel is purified, then it can be completely filled with light. So according to the size of that desire, that's the extent that the light can shine in that desire. So here we now are going to talk about hate for a second. When we talk, when we start this process with new students who come into the wisdom and are going through our campus, a lot of times we get this, hey, hold on a second. I don't like the word hate. Stop using the word hate. I just spent 6 years
Right.
studying the Vedas. We don't talk about hate. We remove ourselves from hate. Anybody who
Hmm.
thinks about hate, they're giving energy to hatred. When you study the wisdom of Kabbalah, you kind of have to wash yourself of all these definitions. Remember those, Chris is from the States, so he knows. I don't know if they have the same produce scales in the supermarkets in the super in Israel, but it'd be some kind of like plate, and you'd put your produce on it, and there's a spring, and then this needle would register how heavy, the
Yeah.
weight of your produce. So you'd put like a couple oranges on it, or you'd put some potatoes on it, and it would pull on the spring, and it would register the weight.
Right.
And when
So
you're
let's
if you're
call,
a kid, you have to walk by and pull on it. Doesn't
yeah, of course, you have
matter.
to pull it down. Yeah. So let's call the spring, for example, hate. It's just the opposite force to the thing going up. You're
Right.
pulling that thing down,
So,
but the
so,
measurement is going
so
up.
basically, you can't weigh love without hate.
If you're a cat, how much love are you capable of? If you're a tree, how much love are you capable of?
If you're
But
a child,
if you're a person who all the
Okay.
aggression is taken out of you, if all of the sex drive is taken out of you, if all of the bonding is taken out of you, how much are you How much are you capable? How much is your?
Right.
How big is your
And,
vessel? What are you
and,
capable of?
let's add to this another aspect. If you just come out to the world saying I love everybody, uh, versus if you feel like you have a hard time loving everybody, but you make an effort to overcome that and love everybody, which person actually experiences love or is closer to experience love
So
towards others?
this is a great
Right?
question. I'll tell you why.
Was the question clear? Yeah. Okay.
No,
yeah.
the question is really
Like,
clear. And not only is it clear, it's going to be really helpful for some people here because I don't remember who before who said, I just loved everybody and I was so naive and they just ate me up. And then someone else said, I just keep to myself now. I even cut out my family, I cut out my friends
mm,
because I'm so exhausted and hurt from
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
loving.
Yep.
So that I hope you're still listening here because there's some really good advice to be given here. Maybe my friends here can help with understand those discernments there.
Well, I think the first thing to put on the table, which is you got to swallow it. It takes a bit to swallow it in the beginning. If you're a beginner in Kabbalah, this is one of those things that it takes a while to actually swallow it. But but it's undeniable once you begin to just allow yourself to actually accept it, and that is that our nature is has evolved to become completely opposite to the creator, to light, to the quality of true unconditional love. We are creatures that are fundamentally opposite to that. And and that's because we represent the farthest layer of desire that was created. In the technical language of Kabbalah, we represent the Malchut. If you want to talk about the 10 sfirot being the connection between let's look at it that way, the connection between the creator and the created being. So ultimately, you could say the highest quality of the creator we can identify, that we can perceive, we call that Keter. The lowest quality is called Malchut. Between them, there's 8 other qualities. Altogether, that gives a structure. In every experience of reality, from a spiritual perspective, you will always have this structure of 10. Connection between the origin and the created being, the emanator and the emanations, the creator and the created being. And so ultimately, there's this distance. But it's because of that distance, because of that infinite gap that where the keter, the quality of the creator, is complete bestowal, unconditional love. We can't even conceive of that, because any idea of love that we have is based from what we know, and that's okay. The kind of love that we know is love for my children, love for my wife, and that's okay. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying these are just hints at what the true force of love is. The true force of love is,
Hold on, Asaf. Talk to the
is
person. Talk to the person who feels that they loved their whole life and they just got pooped on by life. You know, people deceived them, took advantage
so
of
you're
them, and
right.
now
So
they're
so from a Kabbalistic perspective, you're basically discovering what human nature is. And that human nature exists in all of us. Sure, some people in some situations you will encounter will exhibit more egoism than others. Of course, it varies.
But what
But
does this person do who's now
what
isolated?
I think from a Kabbalistic perspective, I think you need to better understand the world that you're in, the reality that you're in, and what human nature really is. And then I think it'll be easier because when you
You'll accept the
understand
others too. You won't hate.
exactly,
You won't be mad at them for the way
yeah.
that they're behaving because you'll see that you're exactly the same. You were created exactly
And
the
even if
same.
you get mad and like let's say that you if you go to court, like if you are a Kabbalah student and you have to go to court and protect yourself against someone who's trying to hurt you, so you're in a kind of a struggle. You can still see things on two levels. Even if you're at war with people who are trying to kill you, you can engage in the war to defend yourself because you don't have a choice, and you might even have to initiate actions to push the enemy away. And yet, from a deeper spiritual perspective, you understand that both you and your enemy are governed by this natural system, and there is a state of correction that you and your enemy ultimately need to get to and will get to. And ultimately, you're actually already there, but now in this reality within space and time, that's how it appears on the way to recognizing it. It's sure
Wait a second. Can we
it's not
pay?
that simple,
Sorry.
but
Can
yeah,
we,
go
we're
ahead,
gonna
go
have
ahead.
to pay it off. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
pay it off a little bit because you guys touched it, but I was
Okay,
waiting for
okay,
you to go
okay.
further, but you didn't go
We
further.
went.
But
Okay, let
I'm
me.
gonna set it. I'm gonna set
Okay,
it
go.
up for you. I'm
Okay,
gonna
okay,
set it
okay,
up for you.
okay, okay.
Initially Seth told us that the creator had to give us the full, right? We're saying we didn't really say what that was that he wanted to give it to us, and we're saying that this title of the show is "You Can't Love Without Hating." Now we're talking about us being some more developed. We're furthest away from this whole thing, which means I guess that means that we're separated from each other, which means we can't feel each other. I don't feel necessarily that I hate other people, but you gave a good example about wrestling and how when I wrestle, I start to feel where the other
Feel
person
the
is,
other, yeah.
and
Hmm.
and you feel the other. And now, if you wanna liken that to say hatred, then if and we said that we're primed now in this place in development where we've developed until now, we're primed. What does that mean? That we're further away, which means that if we come to wrestle with others, we'll start feeling, like you said, we have these sensors that we can then sense how distant we are from them. And then if we have this sensation that we're distant from them, we don't even have to call it hatred, but just say we're distant. And how do we have that connection? Where does that connection come from? Apparently, now this is where the payoff, I guess, is coming, is that if we want that closeness, that's exactly suitable to the thing that the upper force wants to provide. That abundance is that filling, that part that fills that gap.
So to continue right from where you stopped, the sages say something very simple. The Kabbalistic sages, there's no light without a vessel. If you want to experience the light, godliness, true unconditional love and bestowal that is detached from any address to itself, that brings that comes with the reality of eternity, of wholeness, of perfection. These are concepts that we think of as fairy tales, but we don't understand. We don't understand why we have these ideas to begin with, because we're designed we're destined to get there to evolve to these ideas, these true ideas of wholeness, eternity, and perfection. That is godliness. But to feel it, you have to build a vessel for it. Now, the vessel that can hold it, what is it? It has to be a need for it that comes from the opposite side of reality. We have to come from the Malchut, create connection with the Keter, and discover all the qualities in between. And that is what we call 10 Sfirot. And so there's no light without a vessel. And to experience love, you have to come from a point where you experience and aware of, conscious of hatred. And so it doesn't mean you have to get to a point where you're the worst externally. You're actually like hating people actively, but you're gonna feel that point in you from which you can then discern what godliness is like. And what is spiritual progress? What is spiritual advancement? It's not like a linear, okay, I like you study something at school. I know a little bit of math. Now I study more, I know better. I know better, I know better, I get better. Like a linear type of progression. Spiritual progress is like more like a sine wave that goes up and down, and the amplitude of the wave is growing. So you go deeper into recognizing your hatred, and then higher to the recognition of godliness, and then deeper into understanding what you're made of and how your nature is opposite to that of the Creator, and then higher to recognizing how sublime, how godly, how complete, perfect, and eternal the true quality of love of the Creator is. And that's spiritual progress. And that's why all of humanity designed to experience this ultimately has to grow from just being like animals and not wanting much to wanting more and more and more. 4 levels, according to these 4 Havaya letters that symbolize this whole evolution of the vessel. And in our time, we're getting to this last stretch. We're getting to this point where humans are becoming so individualistic, so egoistic. The culture, the mindset is so much of separation and isolation between each and every person, and where there's so much polarization and so forth. But that actually creates the infrastructure for us to begin wrestling with that, wrestling with each other, trying to connect with each other in a new way, and beginning to feel this ultimately this perception of godliness that fills all these connections between us, and raises us to a higher level of development. And that's also why the world is becoming globally interdependent. It's why we see that any issue in the world today becomes globalized. It's why we see a bunch of things that we're seeing today, because we're moving towards that point where we have to start working upwards to move towards the Creator, towards the quality of love.
So
times.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Cool
beautiful.
times. Yeah.
So we're going to continue to have these conversations to understand what are all these feelings inside ourselves. We're not erasing any feelings inside of us. We're using them all to advance. Hang tight, everybody. Help each other. Think good thoughts about each other. It all adds to the system. So grateful to have these conversations with you guys. I feel I'm the luckiest. And a big hug to everyone. We'll be back next week, Thursday, 2:00 Eastern. And when do you guys change your clocks, by the way?
I think it's next week. I think next week we'll already be in the 7-hour
We'll be
difference.
back at
We'll still be 2 p.m. Eastern, but anybody
Yeah.
over on the other side of the ocean, we'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.